Well, hello, friends. Welcome to another episode of Intentional Living with Emla podcast. I am Emla Tubo, your host, and I hope you're having a wonderful week so far. Have you ever taken a medication and thought, why is this not working for me? Or worse, why do I feel worse instead of better? What if I told you that it might not be the medication, it is actually how your body is wired to process it? Today, we're going to be talking about something that has the power to completely transform how we approach healthcare. Pharmacogenomics. I know that's a big word, but because for far too long, medicine has operated on like a trial and error model. Try this, adjust that, switch again, try this, and allowing patients to deal with side effects, frustrations, and uncertainty. What if we could move from guessing to knowing? What if we could use your genetic blueprint to guide the medication choices so they actually work for you the first time? In today's episode, I am joined by Jarret Drucker, a doctor of pharmacy student with a special interest in pharmacogenomics. And together, we're going to break down what this means in real life, who it's for, why it matters, and how this kind of testing is changing the future of personalized care. Welcome to the episode, Jarret.
Thank you for having me, Emma. I'm glad to be here.
I am so happy to have you. So Jarret is a doctor of pharmacy student. So in just a few months, Jarret will not be a doctor of pharmacy student. In just a few months, Jarret will be a doctor of pharmacy.
Yeah.
From the Ohio State University.
Absolutely.
College of Pharmacy.
Been a long time coming at this point. I've been in school for a total of 8 years at this point. I really feel like I'm about to be done. Hopefully some exciting news tomorrow because me and my friends are kind of in the middle of the residency application process, and tomorrow is our match day, so we'll all be finding where we're going to be sent off to. So
I am very excited about that. So we're going to do a celebration for you tomorrow. But here, before that, while in pharmacy school, this is 8 years of intense studies on medications, how they affect our body, and how you're going to counsel our patients to take these medications. You have had a special interest in psychiatry and a deep dive into pharmacogenomics.
Yeah, and absolutely. These are two areas that go very hand in hand as well. So pretty much throughout my entire time in school, going back to my undergrad coursework, whenever I had an elective course that I had to take, a lot of times that would be filled up with a class on either psychology, psychiatry, or genetics. It wasn't until I really got into the later part of that that I found out that those were all areas that I could actually participate in as a provider in pharmacy school and hopefully beyond as well. So just kind of as I continued on through things, I really started to find more and more ways to kind of approach that passion, use that, learn more about it. And I've gotten some really cool experiences at this point, just throughout my time as a learner and through practice and through my own research and finding different ways to apply these kind of things. So
I love it. The Ohio State University College of Pharmacy is producing wonderful graduates. So I am excited because that may be my alma mater, so I am not biased at all. So I got my Doctor of Pharmacy at the Ohio State University, and I currently sit on the board, and I could not love it more. So I just when you were assigned to our pharmacy, so this is your experiential rotation with us. So when I've been talking, when I was doing the introduction, I said pharmacogenomics.
Yeah.
And when I said pharmacogenomics, my podcast producer looked at me and she goes, Emla, what do you mean by pharmacogenomics? Can you break it down? So I'm going to ask you that question. Can you break it down? What is pharmacogenomics?
yeah, and we get that a lot, and that's a question that I've dealt with from a lot of patients in clinical settings, along with people who I've just talked to about it in my day-to-day life. So just a little bit of background about kind of my experience with the topic, and then I'll get into kind of what it is and what we do. So for work, all of us pharmacy students, the most of us have internships that we do at different sites, whether that be at a community pharmacy like Powell, whether that be at a hospital, which in my case is Cleveland Clinic main campus up in Cleveland, Ohio. We all find different ways to kind of get out and like work with whatever our interests are, whatever our future goals are. So me being an intern at Cleveland Clinic, I got to work in one of their settings that they would use to do clinical pharmacogenomics. And like Emma said, when that word is thrown around, it often leads to a lot of questions at first, but kind of a good way that I like to explain it is that our genes that are passed down to us from both of our parents kind of work as a little bit of a blueprint they don't tell us exactly what we are and what we're going to be. There are other things that impact that as well, but it acts as a good starting point for what our body builds off of.
Yes.
So when you have a gene, let's say you inherit one half of that from one parent, one half of that from the other, it tells your body which proteins and which different systems you're going to make and use within your body. So when we talk about pharmacogenomics, we're kind of adding genomics, the study of genes, to the study of pharmacy, pharmaco being the root word of that. You start to kind of look at how our genes not only affect how we are built as people and how our systems work inherently, but also just how the things we take and the medications that we use are impacted by who we are as people. And to me, I find that incredibly interesting and very just effective in potentially being able to figure out better ways that we can take our medications every day. I think that there's a big future in continuing that field as well. So
absolutely. I find it fascinating. And this is the reason why at Power Pharmacy, one of the reasons when I was writing the business plan for Power Pharmacy, I'm like, without question, one of the services that we're going to offer is pharmacogenomics so that we can be able to do a genetic testing and see how your body will process medications. So, for example, let's talk about psychiatric medications and for antidepressants. And let's save that for later. Let's hold that for later. I know because I took this test. I was the first person to take it at Power Pharmacy because I wanted to test it on myself before. So I did the pharmacogenomic test and I realized that there's a medication, Plavix, which my body cannot process. So can you tell us about that gene and why is it that my body cannot process Plavix?
Yeah, absolutely. And Plavix is a fantastic example.
Yes.
Great, because it falls under what we have as guideline-directed medications for this. So essentially, a bunch of leaders in healthcare have met up and decided that there are certain genes that are 100% of the time predictive of how Plavix is going to actually work within our bodies. And as more and more information comes out about that, we find more and more drugs like that. But as just kind of a baseline overview of what that actually means. So when you take a drug like Plavix,
hold on one moment, Jarret. We just jump right into it. What actually is Plavix and what does it do? Let's go back one step before we explain what it is.
So Plavix is an antiplatelet medication. People will usually take it if either they've already had a heart attack or in certain cases and certain issues of blood clotting to prevent blood clots from forming and to prevent kind of platelets from bunching up in the middle of an artery or vein and causing a blockage. So kind of piggybacking off of that, the way that drug in specific works with our genes is that it is... don't need to know the nitty-gritty of this, but essentially there's a gene called cytochrome P450 2C19. The cytochrome family is a big family of different types of genes which help us metabolize and process all of the medications in our body. So usually what that means is when we metabolize something and when we process it, it gets it out of our body. But Plavix is a little bit different. So Plavix is what is called a prodrug, and basically what that means is... it has to be converted to an active form by that enzyme. Now, someone who is, by their genetic code, and this is something that we can see, someone who does not produce a lot of that enzyme might not be effectively able to convert that to its active form. So, especially when you're talking about a medication that is as critical as something that could potentially stop a blood clot from forming and stop a heart attack or stroke, you really have to be careful and think about the fact of, well, is this medication that I'm taking actually working how it's supposed to, or could there be another reason why it's not? Of course, there are a lot of reasons outside of your genes that could, but your genes are 100% a reason that you can see it and know right away, this is not going to work for me. I might need another option, and that is potentially life-saving. So,
that is 100. I love that last line you put there. So, if I'm hearing you correctly, what you're saying is that if I were to have a heart attack today, and then I go into the hospital, the majority of people who have a cardiovascular event leave the hospital with a prescription called Plavix.
Yes.
And so if they were to write that prescription for me and I take it to the pharmacy, I fill my Plavix, they'll start it while you're in the hospital and you take a prescription as you go out.
Yes.
Plavix. And I take my tablet of Plavix, throw it in my mouth, drink my water, and I'm thinking that I've taken a medication, that my enzyme in my body is going to go in, convert this Plavix into the active form so that it's going to prevent my platelets from sticking to one another and causing a blood clot, and then Emla has another heart attack. So we want to prevent that heart attack.
Yes.
But my body is not producing that enzyme.
Right.
So there's another medication that the doctors would have given me
Yes.
if they knew that I'm one of those that doesn't produce that enzyme to convert Plavix, the prodrug, into the active form.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is really the baseline of what we are trying to do in the study of pharmacogenomics. And
Yes.
in the future, hopefully expand to even more and more drugs, is why do we have to give something and go through this whole trial and error process
Yes.
if there might be a way to see from the start that something will work? And that saves lives, because
Yes.
if a patient is to get, whenever a patient has a heart attack, we give what's called dual antiplatelet therapy that
Yes.
consists of aspirin plus one of those other drugs.
Yes.
If they get one of those other drugs and it's not working for them and they have another heart attack, that could be potentially fatal, having two heart attacks in a row like that. And if that's something that we can prevent just by looking at a test, it completely changes the way that we actually practice medicine and the way that we treat our
100%.
health. So
100%, because this is a test that you don't have to ever do twice.
Yeah.
This is a test you do one time and you have the result, and that's never going to change.
yeah, easy too. You don't have to give blood or anything. There are certain genetic tests that do use blood, but also
That was
just
going to
as
be my
effectively-
next question.
Yeah.
So if somebody is listening to this and going, oh my goodness, I want to do this test, because I was like, I tell my friends, if they're like, oh, my daughter has been diagnosed with depression, or she's starting an antidepressant, or my son is starting an antidepressant, what would you do, Emla? Do you like this antidepressant? I'm like, it doesn't matter what Emla likes
Yeah.
or not as a pharmacist. It matters what their body can break down.
Yeah.
And so I tell all my girlfriends, if their child or themselves are starting an antidepressant, just do this pharmacogenomic test. And it would tell you exactly what medication your body is a fast metabolizer, slow metabolizer. So can you tell us about that? So if you walk into Power Pharmacy, first of all, you don't need an appointment to get
Right.
this test done. You walk into Power Pharmacy. Is this a blood test? Tell us a little bit about this test.
Yeah, so all the commercially available tests that are on the market for us right now are actually going to be saliva swabs. So
Yes.
it's as simple as going in and taking a swab. A lot of people may have done at home to something like a genetic ancestry test, like from
Yes.
either Ancestry.com or
Yes.
23andMe or a commercial service like that.
Yes.
The way we can test for these drug parameters are exactly the same. So essentially what you would do is you would take a swab. You could just rub it around on the side of your
Yes.
cheeks, and we'll help you with that too in the
Yes.
pharmacy if you would like to do it there. But it's as simple as getting some cells from your cheeks and a little bit of a sample of your saliva, sending that into a lab, and they're able to extract your DNA from that. And the reason for that is because your DNA, no matter what cell it's in your body for the most part, it is going to be the same wherever.
Yes.
So we don't need to get it from blood like we get a lot of other things. So
Fantastic. So how much does this test cost?
yeah. So costs can be kind of variable depending on what you're actually attempting to do. But for a lot of these clinical pharmacogenomics tests, right now what we're looking at is a cost around $500 for most of them that are on the market right now. That is, to me, and that might sound like a lot at first, but to me that is something that is amazing, because just for a little bit of background, this is a very new science. In the late 90s, we had something called the Human Genome Project, which was the first time that we had ever gone and sequenced the whole human's DNA. At that time, this was a massive undertaking by multiple countries,
Yes.
even billions and billions of dollars in research.
Yes.
And the cost of sequencing a single genome at that point was in the millions, even into the tens of millions of dollars to get it done for one person. I know.
But now, listen, so it was millions, millions, millions. Now, this test is in such a way that we have partnered with Flex Health and are able to provide this test, not even for $500. That was the initial cost for most places out there. At Power Pharmacy, we offer this test for $390.
Yeah.
So at
Wow.
$390, you are able to get your genetic testing, and it would tell you how you metabolize the medications.
Yeah.
Before you even start taking any medication.
Yeah.
So we're going to put a link in the show notes about the tests on Power Pharmacy website, and you do not need an appointment. You can stop into Power Pharmacy at any time. I have one more question for you,
sure.
Jarret. This podcast is sponsored by Journeys, your path to intentional wellness. Most health problems don't start overnight, and neither does wellness. With Journeys, you can take charge of your health before you have to. Every cell in your body is speaking to you. But when we ignore preventive medicine, we wait until those cells are screaming. Journeys helps you listen to the whispers. There are 3 different journeys to choose from, each designed to meet you where you are in your wellness path. The Core Wellness Journey for $199 offers a foundational look at your overall health, perfect for getting started and measuring 66 biomarkers. The Advanced Heart and Metabolic Health Journey for $339 measures 111 biomarkers and goes deeper into cardiovascular, metabolic, and thyroid health for a more detailed picture. The Comprehensive Longevity and Hormone Journey costs $469 and is the most complete view, including hormone, nutrient markers that support energy, balance, and healthy aging. This measures 120 biomarkers. Each journey includes a personalized recommendation, one-on-one care from your pharmacist, and follow-up support to help you turn results into lasting intentional change. You just won't get data. You'll get guidance, accountability, and a partner in your wellness journey. Intentional living means paying attention, staying curious, and taking steps towards the health you deserve. Start your journeys today. Click the link in the show notes. So a lot of people are afraid, like, oh, I don't want to take this genetic testing. What if my information is out there and insurance companies or employers, discriminate against me because of the information that they have about about me?
Yeah. That's a very, very common question that we get a lot in practice, and it's a very valid question too. I mean, this is very, very sensitive data about you that really shows you to the core level of what you are as a person.
Yes.
Luckily for us, there are things that the government has taken already to address this. So in the original language of HIPAA, there obviously was not any word in there about genetics. They didn't understand when that law was made about genetic testing. Come the 90s, however, as it started to become, like I said, at the end of the Human Genome Project, it started to become a thing. Like, how do we do this? This could be bad if someone gets a hold of this.
Yes.
So they included some minor parameters there, and then eventually up into 2008, when they started kind of readdressing how we do healthcare again, they passed. Our government passed something called GINA for short. It's the Genetic Information Non-Discrimination Act, and basically what that says is it's an attachment and an add-on to HIPAA that says any genetic information that you have, any genetic information about you, cannot be used to discriminate against you in employment, in insurance, in any other reason for whatever you could be using it. You are protected against your information being used against you. That is not something that could ever, under our law, happen. So
I love that.
It's really great that we do have those kind of protections too, because you're right, this is very powerful information, and I understand why people would be a little bit nervous about that at first, but there are very much steps in place to keep us protected.
Steps in place. At Power Pharmacy, we take this very seriously. We abide by HIPAA, we abide by GINA, and personally, I have, as the pharmacy owner, pharmacist, I have the duty to protect. I have the duty to protect my patients, my clients, and it is my responsibility to take care of you just the way I take care of myself. I hope that with this information, you are able to make the decision. I encourage everybody listening to this podcast today to stop by Power Pharmacy and get this test done. We can even mail it to you. And just to read a little bit more about it, send us an email, call us, ask us questions about it, because this is important.
Yeah.
You cannot make changes if you don't know.
Absolutely. And you could learn something incredibly beneficial
about
to
yourself. Like, I know about Plavix. Now I know that if I have a cardiovascular event, knock on wood, please God, no. If I have a cardiovascular event, do not be giving me Plavix. I know the other medication that I could take, but we know already about me. You could also discover some important information about yourself like that.
Yeah.
Jarret, thank you so much
Of course.
for coming to the podcast today and teaching this information about pharmacogenomics to us. If you have listened to this podcast and have learned something about the importance of pharmacogenomic testing, please share this podcast with somebody. You could be saving a life. I have a friend out, not even in Ohio, in New York, and their father had a cardiovascular event, went to the hospital, they were given Plavix after that. Come to know they had a second cardiovascular event, they were not metabolizing Plavix.
Yeah.
So if they had done this test before, they would have prevented that second heart attack.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And one thing of note, too, is that one thing I like to tell my patients all the time is, especially when you do this kind of test, too, your genes are your genes for life. What you've inherited from your parents is going to stick with you. So if you do this test now, with the information that we have now and what we can interpret, there are decisions we can make on that. But my favorite part about this kind of study, too, as compared to like a blood test, is if you do this test in 20 years, in 30 years, the results are going to be exactly the same. So anything that you see right now is going to be the same thing you see, and you can use this information forever. It's one test for your whole life. So.
To improve your health. Thank you very much, Jarret.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And if you are a Buckeye listening to this episode, please give us a review. Tell us how Jarret did in teaching us about pharmacogenomics today. I think he did a phenomenal job.
Well, I appreciate that, Emily. You're a great host. So
I'm a great host, but I also want to thank the professors at The Ohio State University for teaching you, and thank you for taking interest into this to helping us and our community.
Yeah, thank you so much, Emma.
Thank you.